A Hidden Life is an absolutely beautiful film from writer-director Terrence Malick that sees him put away his more pretentious aspects of filmmaking and focus more on a narrative-driven story, so to speak, that is very beautiful, very heartfelt, and definitely worth watching. A Hidden Life stars Diehl and Valerie Pachner in a film that really focuses on the life of the Diehl's character. His name is Franz Jagerstatter, something like that. And what he is, he's basically an Austrian conscientious objector to World War II, and it focuses on his very rural upbringing and him and his wife's life in this very isolated town up in the mountains where they just live a really humble life, farming and, creating whatever substance they need to survive for their family along with their, their fellow villagers and such. The film opens on approximately 1939 or so, where Franz is married in this small village and not a lot really happens. They're just enjoying life, being together. They start to raise their three children, three little girls that it shows being born, and he's eventually called up to basic training or whatever for the war with France when Germany's invaded, and he goes off for several months, and a lot of the story is told with, as usual, Terrence Malick, a lot of voiceovers. Specifically what he did is he focused in on the various letters that were written back and forth between Franz and his wife throughout his time in basic training up until the point where he's brought in for being a conscientious objector and thrown into prison. The film it's very beautiful. As always with Terrence Malick's films, you get these amazing natural light shots with landscapes, some wheat and various things blowing in the breeze while people moving in the background. And a lot of times the film actually has what appears to be no added music or any kind of score to it. It's just the sounds of nature. There's one shot where they're both sitting there cutting wheat with a big scythe and just moving back and forth, and you can hear the motions of it cutting through the grass, of them kind of breathing hard from the exertion and things like that. And that makes the movie more heartfelt in a way because they are away from this war in essence, but the war still encroaches on them and pulls them back in. So after Franz comes back to his home after basic training, he's kind of in a situation where he doesn't want to fight in the war. He goes and talks to a priest at one point in it, tells him about his objections to it. He's like, I can't do this. I can't swear fealty to Adolf Hitler. I just can't do it. I can't go and, bear my anger or hand towards another man. And I just want to be here, help my family, survive for them. We're just farmers. And a lot of the members of the town, they start to kind of turn on them because they are more proponents for the war. Some of them have already had their sons sent off, or their, the husbands, various fathers and stuff. Whoever's old enough to fight, they've already been sent out to the front line and stuff. And then finally the inevitable day comes where Franz gets his letter in the mail that he has to go and report to training and eventually to the front line to fight. Well, he goes and does this, but he doesn't swear fealty to Hitler. He can't do it, and what happens is he's thrown into prison. And he spends the next 6 months, a year or so in this prison with multiple people trying to convince him, along with like a defense attorney, along with the various officers and stuff at this prison, who are basically just beating on these men that are held there for various reasons. Some of them are like him, they don't want to fight in the war. Some of them are, in essence, a little bit crazy. Some of them are, deserters or things like that. But the film has a lot of very beautiful moments where, the standard T. Malick shot where it kind of moves around and you can see them and they're all in silent contemplation, sitting there looking distraught, with the sun behind them, and then the beautiful voiceover narration kind of talking about their feelings, or specifically in this case, the reading of the letters that he would write to his wife, or his wife had written to him being read in her voice. And it's a very, very, very beautiful film. It does have a narrative beginning and end, unlike a lot of Terrence Malick's films of recent history, and it's a pretty good film. I can't really find much to fault about it. It is long. It's like 2 hours and 40 minutes long, so it is one of those longer films, but you don't really think about it in that way, because the film is such a beautiful story, because it's told, him going off originally to basic training, him coming back, him being there, the people of town trying to turn on him, or starting to turn on him leaving, then being thrown into prison, the townsfolk continuing to turn on his wife, basically not helping her. There's one shot where the wheel falls off of her cart and nobody comes to help her, except one old woman eventually walks up, helps her lift up the cart so they can put the wheel back on, and then she returns the favor to the old woman by giving her some vegetables she grew. And then you see a towns member who was a friend of her husband comes and steals some vegetables, some beets from her garden, and just looks at her and is like, what are you going to do? You're not going to do anything. Kind of spit on her or whatever. And then a little bit later, you see where she goes to the mill and tries to get some wheat or whatever ground up, and the guy who grinds it ends up giving her double what she brought in, showing that those feelings are starting to soften towards them, because as the war is progressing, you can see that Germany's not going to win, that they're going to lose, that they're really just sending all their young men out to slaughter. And the film progresses to the point where finally Franz is brought in front of a tribunal, where he is basically giving another chance to, renounce this conscientious objector status. They say that we'll put you in like a medical unit, but you still have to swear fealty to Hitler. And then there's kind of a break in the trial where one of the head people call him into his office, and they have a beautiful conversation where they talk about it, and he still finally says, I cannot swear fealty to it. And it's a beautiful shot because he's sitting in a chair across from this guy's desk, and he's like, I can't do it. And he's like, okay, all right, well, we'll go ahead and head out. So the guy heads out, and the commanding officer walks around, kind of looks at the chair, like washes his hand or brushes his hand over it, and then he sits down in the chair and kind of sits there, and you can kind of tell that he's like, trying to put himself in that guy's position, because he obviously is one of these people that didn't want to be involved in the war, but couldn't bring himself to say no, because he knew that it would mean his certain death, which is what it means to Franz in this instance, because the tribunal reconvenes and he is convicted of cowardice or something like that and basically sentenced to death. And then the film kind of goes a little bit slower with a couple more letters. He's put in there, back into prison. His wife is able to come visit him once. She pleads with him at first, and other people plead with him, and then his wife looks at him and is like, I will support you no matter what you choose. And then he of course, chooses to not take the oath of allegiance to Hitler. He chooses to say no. I feel that my God wants me to stay out of this, and that's what I'll do. And that really leads to the conclusion or the ending of the film, where the wife goes back off to the home with the children and her sister. She's there. She's happy with the children, and they write the last letter that he writes to his wife and children is being read, and it starts off with, my children, my wife, by the time you read this, I will be dead, but I am always with you. And it's a very beautiful and touching film from beginning to end. If you like Terrence Malick's work, you'll absolutely like this film. If you're a little bit hesitant on Terrence Malick's work, you may not like this film. You may find it a little bit long, a little bit boring, but you will certainly find it very beautiful to look at, because it is clearly shot on location up in the mountains somewhere, and you can see that in the shots. You can see this very simplistic life that these people are living, and you can only imagine what it would have been like to be in their situation back at the start of World War II, where you are just a farmer up in the mountains trying to raise your little bit of livestock, grow your crops, and care for your family, and then all of a sudden you're thrust into the heart of World War II. The film really avoids any kind of battles or action scenes about World War II, and just focuses on kind of this character development with this person who believes himself to, in essence, be a martyr. He wants to believe that he is doing God's will by not taking this oath, by not raising his hand against another man, and I feel that he was. And in fact, it ends with him dying for his belief, giving the last full measure of devotion to something that is a cause bigger than or of himself. As I said, it is a very beautiful film. It is certainly well worth the watch if you get the chance to give it a watch. It is a little bit longer, 2 hours and 45 minutes or so, but I really couldn't find any faults with it, and I think you'll highly enjoy it, and I definitely recommend it. Other than that, thank you. Feel free to like, subscribe, and share, and have a good day.